All right. So let us carry on. And so now we have looked at many of these smaller things on the path. We have looked a little bit at the idea of brahmacharya, at the idea of asceticism as part of the path, and what kind of asceticism is good, what kind is bad. And usually the Buddha is not very positive about the being ascetic or self-torment. But now we're going to have a quick look at the Four Noble Truths. Why? Because it's part of the Mahamangala Sutta. So the Mahamangala Sutta kind of has everything here. So this is about the realization of the Four Noble Truths. And of course the Four Noble Truths, they are famously proclaimed in the Dhamma Chakka Pavattana Sutta, the setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. And this sutta, in case you don't know, is found in the Connected Discourses, the last chapter, which is the Satcha Samyutta, the Connected Discourses on the Truths, the Four Noble Truths, sutta number 11. 11? Why is it 11? Shouldn't it be number 1? This is what happens when you become kind of the super fault-finding, maybe like me, I don't know, maybe I'm too fault-finding, But some people ask these kind of questions, I've seen scholars asking this kind of, why is it number 11, not number 1? And then you will hear a long explanation of why it is number 11. And what someone was arguing was that each chapter in these collections has 10 suttas. So they were saying, originally it was number 1, but then another chapter was placed in front, and so it became 11 instead. So maybe it used to be number 1 in that collection, so unsure. So let us look at these Four Noble Truths, and these are very, very interesting, and I would really recommend you to contemplate them in depth. During the last rains retreat at Bodhinyana Monastery, we were looking at the first Noble Truth. And I was supposed to look at all 4, but after 8 sessions, I was still at number 1. Each session lasts about an hour and a half. So an hour and a half times 8, you can imagine how many hours on the first Noble Truth. So this is a very interesting. In one way, it's very profound, but in one way, it's also very straightforward. It is not that hard to understand. Don't think that the Dhamma is impossible for you to understand. The basic ideas are very straightforward. Everyone here is capable of understanding what is going on. Sure, realization is something else. Realization is profound, but realization is really just more of the same, but in a deeper way. And so the basic ideas is possible for everyone to get their head around. So don't be afraid of the Dhamma. Don't be afraid of dependent origination. You don't have to be a genius to be able to understand these things. Sometimes being a genius can get you in the way of understanding these things. I don't know about you, but I always found it is interesting when you are very good at something. If you are very smart, if you are very intelligent, then the world, you will be very useful in the world. And when you are very useful in the world, then the world will tend to catch you and grasp hold of you, and they won't let you go. And you won't be allowed to practice the Dhamma. You won't be allowed to become a monk. Why? Because Goldman Sachs will catch you. So you can create complicated financial instruments to sell on the markets for great profit for those people who are already wealthy. And it's kind of a waste of time. But what they do, they give you a good salary, they boost your ego to the max, they give you a high social status, And this is how they draw you into something that is utterly useless at the end of the day. Who wants to work for Goldman Sachs? Actually, probably some. But these are kind of the highest profile firms on Wall Street in the United States, and I don't, maybe they have some branches here in Malaysia as well. I'm not sure, but they have branches around the world. And it is amazing how trapped people become by these things, how entrapping these things are, and how complicated and how kind of. But at the end of the day, it is not all that useful. There is a nice Dutch historian who writes about these things. He has started something he calls the School of Moral Ambition. And what he says very interesting. He says that a lot of these people who have these kind of jobs, this sort of banking jobs, with Goldman Sachs, or they are into corporate law. It's one of these other highfalutin kind of things. Corporate law, banking, and consultancy, McKinsey, and these kind of companies. And he says that a large part of the people who work there. First of all, these are often the very best people, the best brains in society go to these places because they get hijacked already at university and they get taken to one side and they kind of get, boosted or whatever. But many of them find their jobs meaningless. Once you get there, they find them completely useless. Yes, you get a high status, yes, you get a high salary, but there's no sense that you're actually doing anything useful for society. All you're doing is lining the pockets of those people who are already really wealthy. All you're doing is creating financial instruments and doing things that doesn't really get anyone anywhere. It doesn't solve the big problems that we have, the wars, the climate change, the too many people are smoking and these kind of things. Those real problems don't get solved, whereas you spend your time doing things that are useless. And so this fellow, his name is Rutger Bregman, and I don't know, I really like this guy. He's a really cool fellow as far as Buddhists are concerned. He's not bad for a non-Buddhist. And he realized that this was a problem in the world. So he started this school of moral ambition. And so he goes to all the great universities around the world, the Harvard University, Yale University, and he says to those people, are you really sure you want to waste your time in these companies? Or he goes to those very companies, to those people who are disaffected and dissatisfied, and he says to them, are you sure you really want to carry on with this useless, what he calls them bullshit jobs. That's kind of the name of the job. And so he gets all of these young people who still have a lot of fire, who really want to do things. Many of these young people, when they are at university, they want to do something good for the world. They don't want to waste their time on some kind of job which creates useless wealth for the people who are already wealthy. What's the point? Let's do something that really changes society. When you're young, you are idealistic. You want to do something good for the world. And so he gets all of those people, it takes them, poaches them from Goldman Sachs and all these other companies, and puts them into the school of moral ambition, and it teaches them how to be real agents for change in society. Isn't that kind of cool? I just find that so inspiring that someone does that. Because he says that before in his life he used to write books, all kinds of books about, how to live better lives and how to be agents for moral change, all this kind of thing. And he realized, actually, everyone is writing books. Everyone is talking too much. We need to stop talking. We need to act, he says, right? And so he then decided, actually, enough of this talking. He's only in his early 30s, or still, right? He's still a very young fellow. He has already written all kinds of books already. And then he started this school of moral ambition. And so this is what we should remember. We should also remember the same thing. We are already on the right track. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be indoctrinated and confused by the world where they give you stuff that actually is pretty useless. Higher status, more money. At the end of the day, it's going to be meaningless to you. You need something more profound, something that really has a real purpose in life. And this is where the Dhamma comes in. We have it already right in front of us. We just need to use it. And this comes together in the Four Noble Truths. So understanding the Four Noble Truths allows us access to this meaning, the greater purpose, what life really is about. So, well done. We are all here together doing something really useful. We have bypassed so many of the traps of society that the brightest and most intelligent, get trapped by. So if you have a very intelligent child who might get a job with Goldman Sachs, tell them to avoid those bullshit jobs, and become a monk or a nun instead. It's far, far better way of spending your life, or, whatever. So if you think I'm a naughty monk, go and complain to Ajahn Brahman. He will back me up every time, I'm sure. Okay, so let us have a look at the first noble truth. Now this is the noble truth of suffering. Rebirth is suffering, old age is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, being coupled with the disliked is suffering, being separated from the liked is suffering, not getting what you want is suffering. in brief, the 5 grasping aggregates are suffering. No need to turn the page. Yeah. So no, I just like, sometimes this is the problem with too much text and things. You always go ahead of things, and so staying in the present, staying what we have, is actually quite hard, because you know what the mind is like. Yeah. So the noble truth of suffering. Yeah. And the first thing to realize about this is that even this idea of the noble truth of suffering is actually quite profound. Because the reality is, of course, that on the Buddhist path we experience a lot of happiness. And so when the Buddha talks about the noble truth of suffering, it's already about a profound insight into reality. Yeah. So this does not mean that there isn't any happiness. Actually, there's a lot of happiness on the path, and you may have you probably have experienced some of that happiness sometimes in your practice. But this is kind of pulling back, and seeing things from the perspective of a Buddha is a very profound way of understanding what is going on. However, even though it is profound, many of the things that we have just been reading out are also very obvious. You will be able to understand some of these basic things really, really easily. The only thing is that we don't understand it fully. We don't understand it deeply enough. That is the issue. But the general ideas are actually fairly straightforward. So let us start with the first one here. Jati pidukkha is the first one. Rebirth is suffering. It can also be translated as birth is suffering. Rebirth. So why does it say rebirth is suffering? What is going on here? What is the point of saying that birth is suffering? The purpose of the path is to overcome suffering. So if birth is suffering, well, you're already born, so too late. Can't overcome that. Can't overcome that. You're already born. That's already, suffering is already past. Maybe that was difficult and hard. Probably was. Not nice to be born, maybe. Probably. However, it's finished. So it must refer to birth in a future life. That is the only kind of birth you can overcome. That's the only suffering you can overcome. And that gives you an idea of what it means. So this is a reference not just to birth as such, but it is a reference to samsaric existence. Once you get reborn, then there will be old age, there will be illness, there will be death. And once there is one rebirth, well, then there will be more rebirths. This is the idea of rebirth. It's something which goes on and on and on. And so what we are really seeing here is the idea that samsaric existence is a problem. So this is why this is mentioned in this way. This is why birth comes first. Otherwise, old age would come first, death, and then you would have birth. But no, birth actually comes first. And this is a reminder that we're talking about here is samsaric existence. And so it's the going on of the problem of samsara. That is what is meant here. And this is a real problem. This is a real problem for so many reasons. But the main one is simply that doing things again and again after a while gets very tedious. And the only reason why in this life we don't really understand this is because we can't see it. We are kind of shielded, in a sense, from seeing our past lives by the rebirth process. It stops our ability to see the past. And so we are shielded from that. It means that we cannot see what is truly going on. And if we saw it, we would probably be horrified at what is really going on. You would realize that you've done this before, more or less in the same way. Sometimes it has been far worse. Maybe this life, you had a really nice life in so many ways. Nice family, being reasonably well off and all these kind of things. It hasn't always been like that. In the past it may have been much worse. And so once you start to see what is really going on, what samsaric existence is like, then you start to understand the first noble truth of suffering. So in one way it's easy to understand. We can understand old age. We can all understand illness. We can all have some idea of death, why these things are problematic. But once you see the deeper connotations of this, the whole idea of this thing going on and on and on, that's when it becomes more profound, and that's where it becomes really truly meaningful to understand what is happening here. Yeah, this is kind of the thing at stake, is this broader view of things. Now, if you think back to the awakening of the Buddha and the awakening of many people on the path, they very often talk about the three vijjas, the three vijjas. And this is not a coincidence that there are three vijjas. One way of thinking about the word vijja, and this is what I learned from Ajahn Brahm, or that's what he mentioned once, and he said, well, vijja should really be translated as insight. Very often it's translated as knowledge, but knowledge is not really satisfactory, because knowledge means like you read a book and you get knowledge. But no, this is more about insight. It's about seeing the world clearly. And the idea of rebirth is one of those insights. And now you know why. Because yes, you know about old age, illness and death, but you don't have the insight into that continued existence. And so that is required for the Buddha to achieve awakening. This is kind of on the way to awakening, because what he is seeing when he sees the wheel of life and death, he sees dukkha. He sees the problem of existence, and that is what enables him then to move towards awakening. Without seeing that, it is really, really hard. And so you have really taken on board so much about the idea of what suffering is about once you understand the wheel of life and death. This is the main problem that we're trying to solve. And it is a big issue. Remember that human birth can be good and bad, but then there are all kinds of other births as well that are even worse. Sometimes they are better, so you get a bit of a holiday, but sometimes they are worse. And then you go to jail, a bad jail for a while, and you're locked up for a while, and then you come out again after a while, and then you take a few deep breaths, and then you go back into jail again soon afterwards. I shouldn't put it that way, it sounds too depressing, but get the general idea of what is happening here. So there's something very urgent here, something very important to be understood. And this is what the first noble truth is about. But it starts very simply by contemplating old age, illness and death. And by understanding these things properly and then extrapolating into future lives, you start to gain what is going on here. So contemplate old age, contemplate illness, contemplate death, understand what they mean. As you getting old is really difficult. It is really hard. We have, some of the monks at Bodhidharma Monastery are getting old now, and I look at them, I think, gee, I don't want to get old. Not that, I'm already getting a little bit old, but not that old anyway. I don't want to get that old. They're kind of in the 80s, and they are falling apart, and they're kind of having a hard problem walking, and they, all kind of things. And so old age really is difficult. It is sometimes, I think, much harder than we actually realize. Sometimes this word is translated as aging, but actually it's not really correct. Jara means old age, not aging. And so seeing that, and seeing that you have gone through that process before, you are still in this life, again you have to go through it again. Remember illness. I don't know if you may be one of those people who have good health, but many people have chronically bad health, and I'm amazed sometimes how ill some people are. I tend to be, so far, I've got reasonably good health, but you see other people who think, jeepers, what if I end up like that? And illness is, again, really, really hard. Seeing people die of illnesses like cancer or whatever. My sister died of cancer, and she got completely emaciated. On her, I didn't really see her towards the very end because I was in Australia, but she got completely became like a skeleton towards the end because the cancer just ate away everything, and there was nothing left of her towards the end. It was really, really hard, really difficult to deal with her, and even just getting a little bit sick. Sometimes I feel really sorry for myself. I get a bit of a flu and I have to lie in bed. I feel, oh no, the dukkha. If you're used to feeling healthy, you're just getting the flu or getting a cold. It's kind of terrible, right? And I think, well, if this is dukkha, what about cancer or whatever? It's going to be really bad. I don't want to go there. So remember these things. And the point is that these things are part of life. If you have been born, you can expect to get ill. And if you don't get ill, that's when something has gone wrong. When you are ill, something has gone right. Yeah, remember that. It is right to be ill. This is part of existence. It is not something that can be avoided. Old age can't be avoided. Death is unavoidable. All of these Silicon Valley tech moguls that try to avoid death, they are just completely deluded. Yeah, it's amazing how people who are so intelligent often are so stupid. Can be stupid intelligent, right? And this is kind of so interesting. And the world is full of stupid, intelligent people. So, contemplate these things. This is the reality. Dying can often be very hard. Dying is hard because you have to give up everything in this world. Everything that is dear to you, everything that's important has to go. Are you ready to die? Yes. Wow. Okay. Cool. Okay. Good. I'm glad. We're not going to put it to a test because that would be we can't do that, right? But good. Yes. I'm glad you are optimistic about being ready to die. But death is not that simple for most people. Everything has to let go of, the people in your life, the possessions, so much has to be let go of, and your future destiny is uncertain. Yeah, all of this makes death difficult. And so you want to build up those qualities within that make sure that you have a certain ability to deal with death when it comes. Yeah, this is kind of the very important part of the path, is having that ability to actually deal with these things. So you are strong within to deal with what is going on. So all of these things are usually very, very hard. And one of the things I would recommend you to do is to do death contemplation quite regularly. When you contemplate death, it is very freeing. It frees you from the attachments in the world. It releases the mind, makes the mind peaceful, because everything in this world tends to become less significant. You gain a larger picture of things, and this is what happens when you do the death contemplation in the right way. Remember, you have to be ready to die now. Now is the only time you can be ready. Yeah, there isn't tomorrow, okay, maybe too late. You don't know when you're going to die, and because you don't know, you have to be ready now. So are you ready now? That's the question. And if you are ready now, great. If not, then you need to kind of prepare yourself as quickly as possible. That's basically the reality here. So by contemplating death, you're making yourself ready. You're making yourself ready in the present. And then it has a lot of advantages. But understanding these things first of all, contemplating them in the right way, understanding what is going on is incredibly helpful. And you gain an insight into these things as you do that, and then you don't have to be reborn, and being reborn is dukkha, another life. Imagine you are in the intermediate existence, and you see that you are about to be reborn. You have just finished one life, and it was plenty hard enough, that one life, I don't know about your life, but I don't really want to live this life again. I have had a good life, but do I want to live it again? No, thank you very much. Enough. And a lot of people have had plenty of enough suffering in their life. And then you are in the intermediate existence. You're on the precipice, about to be reborn. You think, oh no, I don't want to go there. Enough. And bang, you get reborn. Why? Because you haven't finished the job properly, and so you have to kind of carry on. And you may have heard that famous story that Ajahn tells, the famous story about the child that was born in some hospital. I think it was in the United States somewhere, and the child has just been born. And I don't know if newborn babies can speak, but according to the story, this newborn baby spoke. It opened its mouth and it said, "Oh no, not again." It's an amazing story, right? It's really, really nice. But did that happen or not? I don't know, but it's a good story anyway. So, what does Ajahn Brahm say? Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So there you are. Okay, so I'm not going to go into more detail. Each of these things really deserve a lot of contemplation, but we don't have time because today is the last day. Last day today. Okay, so we have to go quickly. Okay, let's go. Let's move. Being coupled with the disliked is suffering. Being separated from the liked is suffering. Yeah? And remember, this is also part and parcel of life. You will get in contact with things you dislike, and you will be separated from what you like. It happens all the time. Yeah? This is it happens in small ways and it happens in large ways. It happens every day to some extent. When you meditate and you feel pain in the body, you are coupled with the disliked. Yeah? And so every day when we torture you here for 45 minutes in the morning, you get coupled with the disliked. And life is full of this. Small pains, big pains, medium pains, problems. Yeah? All the way. Sometimes we don't even notice anymore because we're so used to the pains that we become kind of what is the word? You desensitized, whatever it is, from that pain. But the body and the senses cause endless pain, basically. And the more you get rid of it, the better it is. That's why deep samadhi meditation is so delightful and beautiful. So again, worth contemplating the nature of existence. There's much more problems there than we usually realize. Not getting what you want is suffering. Yeah, you know what that is like. No one ever gets everything they want. And if you did get everything you want, would that be nice? Probably be a nightmare, right? Let's face it. If you get everything you want straight away, it would be terrible for you. I'm just telling you. Why is it terrible to get everything you want straight away? Because then life is meaningless again. So much of life is in the pursuit. So much of the life is in the running after things, yeah? And because then we feel that we are exerting ourselves. Ourself wants to do things. Ourself wants to create. Ourself wants to pursue happiness. The pursuit of happiness is part of the purpose. If you take that away, then there is nothing left. And this is kind of the paradox. And yet, at the same time, the ending of the pursuit is also the highest happiness. So this is kind of the thing. But you have to end that pursuit in the right way. You have to end it through samadhi and deep meditation. Then it becomes truly meaningful. So not getting what you wish for, there's only, some kind of smart fellow once said, there's only one thing worse than not getting what you wish for. What is that? Getting what you wish for. It's nice. It's a very clever way of putting things, but there's some truth to that, yeah? So that means, what does it mean? Well, it means that basically suffering is everywhere. That's what it means, yeah? There is no escape from it, at least not in ordinary existence. And then we come to the last one. In brief, the 5 grasping aggregates are suffering. The panch upadana kanda dukkha, sankitena kanda dukkha. And what are the 5 grasping aggregates? Well, that's us. That's we. That's what we are. We are these 5 grasping aggregates. This is body, feelings, perceptions, will, and consciousness. This is what it is. We grasp these things. They grasp in return. They grasp and we grasp them. It's all about grasping. And this is what we consist of as human beings. These are the main aspects of human existence. And these aspects of human existence are suffering. This is really, now this is what I mean, that this is also very profound. This is where the profundity comes in. A lot of this can be understood through what we have seen already, but at the end of the day, the really hard part to understand is that the very thing that makes someone into a being, a human, animal, whatever, that thing itself is suffering. And that's really hard to grasp. And the way to get to terms with this and starting to understand it is to see that in meditation, as things fade away, there is less suffering, there is more happiness. And then the penny starts to drop. Okay, a little bit is fading away, a little bit is appearing, I'm more happy. Please allow more to fade away. And the more fades away, the more happy you become. And you start to understand why these 5 grasping aggregates are a problem. And if you can end them completely, you achieve the highest happiness. All right, let's have a 5-minute break.
Good morning, Ajahn.
Good morning.
Ajahn, now that we are at these Four Noble Truths, which is the truth of suffering, the first noble truth, right? Can I bring your attentions to this Cetana Sutta at SN 12.38?
SN 12.38. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it's relevant.
I know that Sutta. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says about what we intend or plan and what we have underlying tendency will become a support for the continuations of consciousness.
Yeah.
And if that exists, if the support is there, consciousness will be established. And when consciousness is established, regenerations into a new state of existence in the future.
Yeah.
So is this in reference to the rebirth?
In reference to what?
Rebirth.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is how rebirth happens.
Wow,
So this is like the second noble truth that you're reading out now. Yeah. Yeah, so you're already ahead of the game here. But this is it's the second noble truth. So it's the idea that you intend. Yeah, intention and craving are closely related to each other because when you crave, you intend, and that intention becomes the support for the consciousness, and then you get reborn. Yeah.
Should I continue or I wait until?
You can. Why not? You might as well continue. Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, for me at least, almost everything, if not all, right, is being intended. Whether now, intend or plan, or even the most risky part that I can see, is the underlying tendency that we are not even aware is there. And we usually brush it off as, don't give it a second look.
Yeah.
So are we not perpetually like a hamster in...
Yeah.
So how do we have the right understanding to look it, to understand it differently and to shift the perceptions?
You have come to the right place to get that understanding. Yeah. So the understanding is the Noble Eightfold Path. If you practice the Noble Eightfold Path, then you will stop those intentions. That's what it does. This is one of the things about achieving samadhi. In samadhi, there's no more of these intentions. The underlying tendency is still there, but intention is gone. The point about the Dhamma, you get to samadhi, then you have insight. The insight is precisely an insight into dukkha. When you see dukkha, you don't want dukkha anymore, so how can you intend? All of these intentions are movements towards dukkha. Whatever you intend, it is a movement towards dukkha. You intend to be reborn, you intend to enjoy sensual pleasures. Actually, it's all dukkha. Why would you want to intend any of that? You don't want to intend anymore. Insight into dukkha stops those intentions. That's how it works.
I see. So from that development, cultivations, so the mind will see things as it is, which is the reality.
Yeah.
And premise on that, that's not mooted by intention.
Yeah.
You just stay with it because that is because whatever arising is just the conditions maturing and...
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. You still have some intentions when you become enlightened. You have intentions like the basic things that you have to do to exist. Yeah, you have to eat, you have to whatever, sleep or whatever. So you have those kind of intentions, but you don't have the intentions that are related to the second and third noble truth. We concern sensual pleasures, concern existence, and the vibhavatana, the annihilation of existence. Yeah. So those intentions that really are the strong cravings that drive you on, they have all gone. But you still have these minor intentions like, eating or whatever. But it's not something that you crave in the way that you did before. Yeah, yeah.
So am I correct to say those intentions, the leftover intentions, I call it, is very, very much towards the wholesome side of the perspective of things? Wholesome intention?
Wholesome intentions. Yes, you still have some wholesome intentions, but that's true. So you will have intentions of being kind to people, being compassionate, those kind of things. So that will still be there, yes. But they will still be less different from what you had before. Before even those wholesome intentions had more of a craving nature sometimes to them, because they were related to your existence, related to various different things, sometimes related to the ego a little bit. That will all be gone. So be much more subdued and much more soft kind of intention that you have. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. Yeah. And since I'm holding the mic, right, I would like to ask one more request is the Anapanasati. And from the last few days, I heard from you, if I understood it correctly, right? And that is very important in our practice of four foundation of mindfulness.
Yeah.
So if condition permits, when we are doing our meditations, if Ajahn can give some guidance how to, because I still couldn't grasp how Anapanasati is helpful for the second, third, and fourth foundation of mindfulness. For the first foundation of mindfulness, which is very much the body, then I could link them, but not the second, third, and fourth.
Okay. I've spoken about this in detail before here at the BGF in earlier years. I'm sure that exists online as a recording or something, on the YouTube channel or whatever, because I have gone through the Anapanasati Sutta in great detail. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 hours to go through the Anapanasati Sutta in detail. It's a very involved and interesting sutta. So I would recommend checking that out online. But then you get really good, much better instructions. But the most difficult part with mindfulness of breathing is just getting you started, getting the mind to be mindful, getting ready. That's the hardest part, because you want to get away from the tiredness of the mind, you want to get away from the agitation of the mind. That is actually the difficult one. Once you get to the breath, just allow it to evolve. And then you will have feelings, wow, feelings. Then you get nimittas arising. That's like the Chittanupassana, the mental images. And eventually the last one is the insight into a phenomena. So check out the details online. That's what I recommend there.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Ajahn mentioned just now the 3 vijja.
Yeah.
Can Ajahn explain on what is the 3?
So the first one is the recollection of past lives. So you see kind of the samsaric existence. The second one is understanding karma, that you get reborn according to your actions. That's the second one. And the last one is like awakening itself, is a vision or the seeing of the Four Noble Truths, which is awakening here. So those are the 3. So that these are degrees of insight, degrees of enlightenment.
This one is a request. In the second part of the retreat, can Ajahn provide during the morning meditation? Can Ajahn provide a guidance on the death contemplation?
Death contemplation, we can do some death contemplation, maybe. Sure, that fits very well with metta, right? It does actually.
Thank you, Ajahn.
So great,